This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. Well, at this point in time, just 8 of Donald Trump's 22 cabinet nominees have been confirmed by the Senate, and we'll go through the key takeouts from the hearings in a moment because the Democrats have turned this process into a complete circus and it has been embarrassing to watch. But Donald Trump is calling out the Democrats for delaying the confirmation of virtually all of his nominees. Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, no matter how good and well qualified someone is, they are taking the maximum amount of time for approval and laughing about it. Trump's nominees are so strong and they've been picked not just because they're qualified, but because they're going to shake things up. Whether it's Kash Patel for FBI director, who's been calling out the deep state for years, or RFK Jr., who's been leading the Maha movement, they are the Democrats' worst nightmares. So what have we been seeing on Capitol Hill? Essentially, a bunch of Democrats being so triggered, many of them have been having temper tantrums, been kicking and screaming and making fools of themselves along the way. Let's look at RFK Jr.'s hearing for Health and Human Services Secretary. We know that he's an environmental lawyer, an ex-Democrat and the nephew of JFK, and he's been an advocate for more rigorous testing when it comes to certain vaccines. And the lefties can't comprehend something that makes a lot of sense. Here is Bernie Sanders losing his mind about whether RFK Jr. supports onesies for babies.
We are selling what's called onesies. These are little things, clothing for babies. One of them is titled Unvaxxed, Unafraid. Your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Can you tell us now that you will, now that you are pro-vaccine, that you're going to have your organization take these products off the market?
Senator, I have no power over that organization. I'm not part of it. I resigned from the board.
That was just a few months ago. You founded that. You certainly have power. You can make that call. Are you supportive of this?
I've had nothing to do with leadership.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
Are you supportive of these onesies? I mean, what a joke and a waste of time. RFK Jr. has made it clear he wants good science, and Bernie Sanders has shown the world he's lost the plot. As part of RFK Jr.'s Maha movement, he's promised to take on Big Pharma. So during the hearing, it was actually Bernie Sanders who was forced to explain the donations that he may have accepted.
Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
And
protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money.
Oh, glad that Bernie Sanders cleared up that they were contributions before he clearly wanted to move on from that topic entirely. But lastly, on RFK Jr., here is Elizabeth Warren having a meltdown.
You financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You have said
you're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Look, no one should be fooled here.
Oh, it's hard to watch. But look at how the Democrats question Kash Patel for FBI director. Here is Adam Schiff doing his best to attack Kash Patel for his connection to a song released by Capitol riot inmates.
Turn around.
I'm looking at you. You're talking to me.
No, look at them. I want you to look at them if you can, if you have the courage to look them in the eye, Mr. Patel, and tell them you're proud of what you did. Tell them you're proud that you raised money off of people that assaulted their colleagues, that pepper sprayed them, that beat them with poles. Tell them you're proud of what you did, Mr. Patel. They're right there. They're guarding you today. Tell them how proud you are.
That's an abject lie, and you know it. I've never never, ever accepted violence against law enforcement. I've worked with these men and women, as you know,
you
my entire
glorified it in
life,
song,
and I did
Mr.
not make
Patel.
a single dime out of
In
it.
song.
But throughout the hearing, Kash Patel dominated.
On Joe Pack's podcast, he asked you, the Capitol Police in that fake January 6th committee, they didn't tell the truth, did they? Patel, no, not just them, many others. And lying under oath is a federal offense and they should be investigated for it. Do you believe that about the police officers?
That's a general statement and a mischaracterization of what I said. I encourage you to read the rest of the interview. This is why snippets of information are often misleading and detrimental to this committee's advice and consent process.
If you consent, I would love to have 5 hours of questions and then I could read the whole transcripts.
You've got 2 minutes.
Ouch. Let's look at Pam Bondi's confirmation hearing for Attorney General, because the craziness from the Democrats just went up a level, and the way Pam Bondi was treated was appalling. It reached the point where she had to call out bullying.
Senator, you were speaking. May I speak? You cut me off when I was speaking. When I ask you the next question, you can speak, and I hope you answer, Ms. Bondi. Well, I'd like to answer the previous one, Senator.
When we met yesterday,
you pointed your finger at me and said you were speaking.
You did not seem to be familiar
let me answer my question. I'm not going to be bullied by you, Senator
Clause, the 14th Amendment of the United States of America, which was deeply disappointing.
I guess you didn't want to hear my answer about
today, after I gave an opportunity to study overnight. So can you tell me and this committee what the Citizenship Clause of the 14th Amendment says?
Senator, I'm here to answer your questions. I'm not here to do your homework and study for you.
Now, throughout these hearings, the Democrats have shown that there's really no bar too low for them to go, and that was certainly the case when it came to Pete Hegseth's hearing. Here is Tim Kaine trying to smear him by bringing up his children.
Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was, and you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges.
And just when you think that it couldn't get any lower, it does. Here is Tim Kaine again.
Did you ever engage in any acts of physical violence against any of your wives?
Senator, absolutely not.
But you would agree with me that if someone had committed physical violence against a spouse, that would be disqualifying to serve as Secretary of Defense, correct?
Senator, absolutely not have I ever done that.
You would agree that that would be a disqualifying offense, would you not?
Senator, you're talking about a hypothetical.
Now, despite the ugly attacks, Pete Hegseth kept his cool for the entire 5-hour hearing, and he left Elizabeth Warren completely stumped when she tried to trip him up.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
Now, Pete Hegseth has been confirmed, and there is concern around Tulsi Gabbard. Let's look at her hearing for Director of National Intelligence. She was on fire when she had to call out how offensive the line of questioning was from Senator Jerry Moran.
Make certain that in no way does Russia get a pass in either your mind or your heart, or in any policy recommendation you would make or not make.
Senator, I'm offended by the question because my sole focus, commitment, and responsibility is about our own nation, our own security, and the interests of the American people.
And Tulsi Gabbard continued to shut down wild accusations, including those coming from Mark Kelly.
My concern has to do with the tendency to repeat Russian and Syrian, and even in some cases, I think we'll get into in the closed session, Iranian information, and to discount what comes from our intelligence community.
Senator, every American deserves to know that people in our own government were providing support to our sworn enemy, al-Qaeda. That should not be acceptable by anyone.
Let's bring in Senior Editor-at-Large of Newsweek, Josh Hammer, and GOP pollster and messaging strategist, Brent Buchanan. Thank you both for joining us. This is the state of play at the moment. Marco Rubio has been confirmed to be Secretary of State, John Ratcliffe as CIA Director, Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defence, Kristi Noem as Homeland Security Secretary, Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary, Sean Duffy as Transportation Secretary, Doug Burgum as Interim Secretary, and Lee Zeldin as EPA Director. But many of the nominees are still yet to be confirmed. Josh, you've been following politics closely for a long time. I want to get your thoughts on the hearings and what a joke they've become, and why are these confirmations taking so long?
Well, look, Democrats are trying to gum up the works by whatever means necessary for the very simple reason that they have nothing else to do, Gabrielle. I mean, they don't have a substantive agenda. They don't even know what their agenda consists of right now. I mean, this is a party that is in about as deep as a disarray as they have ever been in their entire modern history. In fact, there was a recent Quinnipiac University poll, that's a reputable center-left pollster here in America, that showed that only 31% of Americans currently view the Democratic Party favorably compared to 57% of Americans who view the Democratic Party unfavorably. That 26-point underwater gap is literally the worst margin in the entire history of modern polling when it comes to Democrats. So they are in really, really bad shape right now. And I think you're basically seeing that in these hearings. They're basically just shouting at the nominees. They're spewing out a whole lot of nonsense because they're very frustrated and they don't really know what else to do. And the reason that they don't know what else to do, I think, is because they are systemically incapable of getting to the root of the problem. They can't actually get rid of the DEI beast. They can't get rid of the woke beast, because to do so would be to repudiate the entirety of the post-2008, post-Barack Obama legacy, which is something that they're not capable of doing at this time. Look, when it comes to Trump's nominees, I think that they're all going to get confirmed. The only one who I had really any questions about going into the past 24 hours was Tulsi Gabbard, but the latest news out of that is that Senator Susan Collins from Maine, who is one of the squishiest Republicans in the entire caucus, she said that she's actually going to vote for Tulsi Gabbard. So unless Mitch McConnell of Kentucky can kind of cobble together some older school Republican security hawks who really don't like Tulsi Gabbard's equivalence when it comes to Edward Snowden, something that personally I'm actually not the biggest fan of that equivalence either. I don't think it's worth taking her nomination on that. But if McConnell and his allies become so aggrieved by that they can tank her, that is the only possibility I currently see that any nominee might not get through. But again, I think she's safe too. RFK Jr. is going to get through here. Pam Bondi is going to get through easily. I think Donald Trump's going to get his cabinet at this point.
Okay, we're going to come back to Tulsi Gabbard, but Brent, what are your thoughts? Because it just seems wild to see some of the line of questioning from some Democrats. Pam Bondi had to accuse the senator of bullying her. Has this been, embarrassing for the Democrat senators and in the way they've handled these hearings?
Well, the Democrats have absolutely no clue what their message is. We have a saying in American football called flood the zone, and that's when you put all the receivers out at the same time. And right now, that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing to Democrats. The second that they think they have a thread of messaging to pull on, like the Canadian and Mexico tariffs, then he puts out 6 more executive orders. And I think that's the exact same thing happening with these nominees, too, is he was very wise to lay this out to where people like Kash Patel for FBI and Tulsi Gabbard for national intelligence and RFK Jr. for health, 3 of what were considered the more controversial nominees, he put them all out at the exact same time. So Democrats couldn't just attack one, they had to attack them all. And therefore, it looks like they're just going after everybody with no cohesive message and no way to say that this is why Democrats are better or that we have a stronger stance than the Republicans do right now.
Donald Trump has spoken about the confirmation hearings today, and he says that we need Kash Patel confirmed because he's the one who can fix the reputation of the FBI. Let's take a listen.
We have to have pristine, beautiful, perfect law enforcement. Kash is the one to do it, and I hear he's doing very well. Kash will straighten it out. We have great confidence that we can make the FBI great again.
Josh, talk to us about why Kash Patel is the one who will straighten it out, in the words of Donald Trump.
Well, I think Kash Patel is the perfect pick to lead the FBI. I actually co-hosted an hour of Steve Bannon's War Room with Kash last summer while Steve was unfortunately away in Danbury Federal Prison. Kash and I had a great back and forth while co-hosting that show. I mean, Kash Patel is someone who has worked on national security investigations. He's worked on DOJ investigations. He is someone who is well equipped to restore public confidence in the integrity of the FBI. The FBI, Gabrielle, I think it's important to remember, is really the agency more than any other in the entirety of the United States government that is at the belly of the beast of what we now refer to as the deep state. When we use the term deep state, it's really the FBI, maybe the CIA and the NSA, but really the FBI more than any other agency that we're talking about here. Because what really, I think when this term started to take on its next level, it goes back to Crossfire Hurricane in the 2016 presidential campaign, when the FBI was used as a tool of partisan political warfare to spy on the Donald Trump campaign, to spy on Carter Page and George Papadopoulos. We all remember those infamous text messages from those FBI agents, Carter Page or Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, talking about how the FBI would be a fail-safe backup mechanism to throw that election to Hillary Clinton if, God forbid, the American people failed. And thank God the FBI failed in that respect, because Donald Trump became president in 2016. But the FBI needs to clean house, because American society fundamentally cannot function. We cannot actually function unless the American people have basic trust in the competence and the integrity of the federal law enforcement apparatus. You need to have some level of public buy-in there, or else things could really go downhill and start to unravel in a hurry there. I think Kash, because of his work, because of the way that he views January 6th, because of the way that he views Crossfire Hurricane, Jim Comey, Christopher Wray, he is the guy who I think is going to end the partisan weaponization of the FBI, and I look forward to him being the next FBI director.
Brant, you've described him as one of the more controversial figures of all the nominees, but just how much can he really shake up the FBI if he is confirmed?
Well, I think that's the question that a lot of Americans have right now. And the fact that so much has happened at the beginning of this Donald Trump administration, and that of those who have already been confirmed, what they've been able to do once they've got into these agencies, I really believe that Americans' minds are opening up to the fact that we actually can change the system. And if we can't change it, then we completely get rid of it, like USAID was announced today, taking that agency and fully putting it under our Department of State. And so people like Kash Patel probably had huge ideas walking into this, and may have even doubted themselves how much they could accomplish. But watching Elon Musk and Doge and some of these other aspects of the Trump administration that are really delivering for the American people already, and wholesale changing how our government is run and how it's thought about, telling people that if you're going to get a paycheck, you better show up every single day for this paycheck, is that he probably, now that he's going through this confirmation, is realizing that he can accomplish pretty much everything that he had set forth in his mind.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see the new appointments are moving so fast to make big changes, including the new directive at the Pentagon. And this is to rotate all media outlets through the press office. So rather than having permanent desks for legacy outlets, which means removing some media organisations from dedicated office spaces in the Pentagon to make room for others. Josh, what do you make of this move?
Well, this is part of a series of moves that the Trump administration is making, I think, when it comes to trying to prioritize newer media, podcasters, YouTubers, things like that. In fact, the new White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, in literally the opening minutes of her first press conference, which happened last week, she said that this is a White House that is welcoming in podcasters. She was encouraging podcasters, YouTubers, bloggers, Substackers to try to apply for press credentials there. So this is very much in line with that. It's also, frankly, in line with the campaign that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance ran. Donald Trump very effectively utilized alternative media, newer media. He went on Joe Rogan's podcast. He went on a lot of shows like that. And in fact, if you actually look at the numbers there, when you go to the top, let's call it 100 shows on YouTube there, the total number of hours logged on the top 100 YouTube shows that Donald Trump had on the campaign compared to Kamala Harris, I forgot the exact ratio, but it was like 50-1 or something crazy like that. He totally dominated her. And I think, frankly, that had no small role to play in his tremendous mandate victory back in November. So this is also a bit of an element here, I think, of rewarding those aspects of the media who helped deliver him a victory. Donald Trump loves giving out favors and rewarding those who helped him along the way. So I think there's a little bit of that going on as well here. But this is very much part of, I think, a forward-looking agenda that views the legacy media, frankly, as yesteryear's media and views podcasters, YouTubers, Substackers as the media of the future.
Absolutely. It's interesting as well, Brent, because Trump made a point of this during the campaign, that the people that he has around him, the people he's nominating, are there to make big changes, because the way things have been running in America hasn't really been working, hasn't been helping the people of the United States. Now we're also seeing the potential scale down of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. There are concerns that the agency has really strayed from its intended purpose of providing civilian foreign aid and is essentially using taxpayer dollars to go to waste. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that he's now the acting director of USAID, and he's spoken about his frustrations with the agency.
I mean, my frustration with USAID goes back to my time in Congress. It's a completely unresponsive agency. It's supposed to respond to policy directives of the State Department, and it refuses to do so. Every dollar we spend and every program we fund, that will be aligned with the national interest of the United States. And USAID has a history of sort of ignoring that and deciding that there's somehow a global charity separate from the national interest. These are taxpayer dollars.
Now, Brent, this has, of course, caused some controversy, but I'm impressed with the speed, just how quickly the Trump administration has been able to kind of go after these agencies that may not be serving the American people.
Well, right now, Americans are open to looking at everything. And I really credit Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk for spending a lot of time in the lead up to Trump actually taking the oath of office to explaining what is the Department of Government Efficiency, why do we need one, what is it going to look at? And they're doing an incredible job communicating everything that they're seeing and finding. And they're starting and looking at every agency from the bottom up. When you look at how much money goes into USAID compared to CIA, at least what's on the books, and other agencies, I think everything's on the table at this point. And any agency who can prove that it is advancing the cause of our country is going to be fine. And I think even programs within USAID, there are going to be ones that are maintained and sustained, and maybe even additional funding given to them. But we're just finally to the point where everybody's going to have to justify the money that they're receiving. I saw a stat today that if we just went back to our 2019 budget, which is simply a year before COVID, we would actually have a $500 billion surplus in this country right now. And Americans are feeling the pressure and crush of inflation and higher interest rates and a government that keeps getting more and more money and is not responding to their needs or taking care of them. We've got a whole swath of Western North Carolina that has had nothing done for it since the hurricanes during the election that tore through there and ravaged entire communities. And then they see money go to Ukraine and they wonder, why are foreigners being prioritized over Americans for American tax dollars?
Josh, Donald Trump says that he loves the concept of USAID, but they're radical left lunatics. And Elon Musk says that USAID is beyond repair.
Look, so this agency was founded by President John F. Kennedy in 1961. It was founded at the height of the Cold War, around the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it was founded to try to be a vehicle to engage in soft diplomacy across the world, to try to keep various countries, second world countries, third world countries, and so forth within the broader Western bloc, within the Western sphere of influence, so that the so-called domino theory of the Soviet Union would not ultimately come to fruition. So every time that you have any organization, any edifice that kind of came to being during the Cold War, my very first question as a commentator, as an analyst, and so forth there is, has this organization outlived its usefulness? And my candid, frank conclusion when it comes to USAID is that the answer is yes, because if you look at some of the recent disbursements they have been making there, I saw that $2 million of U.S. taxpayer dollars were laundered through USAID into Guatemala to fund chemical castration, genital mutilation, aka quote unquote gender affirming care. I saw $45 million that went to Burma, aka Myanmar, for DEI initiatives. Over $500 million, I think it was like $520 million was the exact number, went to various African countries to try to promote so-called ESG, which means environmental social governance, is basically the DEI in investing there. So you get the idea, Gabriella, is that a lot of American dollars here are going to a lot of garbage causes. And that's not to say that they don't do any good work. They actually do a lot of very important work here when it comes to HIV/AIDS prevention. They've been involved with Ebola outbreaks in the past there. But surely what good work they do can be subsumed into the Department of State. There's probably a lot of synergies there. There's probably a lot of bureaucratic overlap that can be trimmed there. I guess the broader point is, and this kind of builds off what Brent was saying, if you're trying to ultimately cut the fat in what Russell Vought likes to refer to as the woke and weaponized bureaucracy, you have to start somewhere. And surely the lowest hanging of all lowest hanging fruit would be an organization that's giving out over $500 million to fund ESG in Africa.
A US Senator Brian Schatz is threatening to block Senate votes on all of Trump's nominees in protest over moves to shut down USAID. Brent, are you surprised that the Democrats are trying to do this?
Listen, they're grasping at any straw that they can put their hands on right now. And what's, I think, most amazing is that Americans really aren't listening to them. Maybe this is part of Trump's strategy to really go around the mainstream media and go straight to citizens and voters and have the conversation. But Democrats aren't being viewed as very effective right now. And, you know, you saw this yesterday where the tariffs were announced and Democrats' hair lit on fire. And then they said all these horrible things were going to happen, and less than 24 hours later, a deal was cut with Mexico and Canada to each put 10,000 troops on their own borders to stop the flow of illicit drugs into our country. And I think that anything that they say at this point is really wasted breath.
I want to get your thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard, as we've heard what Josh thinks that she will get through. There's an NBC News report that there is still growing concern around political circles that Tulsi Gabbard's nomination for Director of National Intelligence could be in trouble. Brent, what do you think her chances are?
As Josh mentioned, it's really encouraging when a Republican senator in a blue state, and I think what most people who don't follow U.S. politics incredibly closely, which I would call sane individuals, realize is that there is really no red senator left in a blue state or blue senator left in a red state outside of this one senator, Susan Collins, who came out today and said that she would be willing to support and vote Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence. And that sends a huge signal because if you were going to have some defense hawks or national security hawks that came in and tried to block this effort, she would be the very first name that you would think of that would be the head of that opposition. And the fact that she was the first one to come out of that group and say, I'm behind Tulsi Gabbard, really passes a lot of credibility to her. And one thing that I'll remind Republicans of, if you're a Republican senator, that Democrats 100% voted for every single one of Biden's nominees. So we need to have the same backbone that they did.
Yeah, what do you make of this, Josh? Are we seeing any Republicans holding things up as well? And what are the consequences of that?
Well, I do think that Mitch McConnell and maybe some of his close allies are probably gearing up for some sort of move against Tulsi Gabbard. But again, I'm not sure I see the votes there to sink this nomination if Susan Collins is indeed a yes vote there. I'm just not sure the math adds up. Maybe they'll give it the old college try, so to speak, but I'm just not sure I see it. RFK Jr. is another one who I think prior to his confirmation hearing was considered maybe a 50-50, a jump ball, to kind of borrow another American sports analogy there. But on the betting markets here, at least after his Senate Finance Committee confirmation hearing, the odds of his being successfully confirmed really skyrocketed. I think I saw 86% on the betting markets there. The idea was that he did a lot to assuage the concerns of a lot of the more socially conservative pro-life senators. Frankly, as a socially conservative pro-lifer myself, I actually had a lot of questions for RFK in that respect. I think that he acquitted himself pretty well over the course of that hearing there. So I really do think that at this point, all of Trump's nominees are going to get confirmed. If there's anyone who's going to go down, it would be Tulsi Gabbard or RFK Jr. I don't think Kash Patel is in any kind of serious doubt. Pam Bondi certainly is not. So it would be Tulsi or RFK, but I think the votes are probably there for all of them.
Senior Editor-at-Large of Newsweek, Josh Hammer, and GOP pollster and messaging strategist Brent Buchanan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thanks.
Let's bring in comedian Alex Stein. Alex, great to speak with you. Look, the Democrats are furious with the Trump administration's decision to shut down and seize control of USAID. There are concerns that the agency has strayed from its intended purpose of providing civilian foreign aid, and they're essentially wasting taxpayer dollars. What's your reaction to the events of the past 24 hours?
Well, I mean, it's been an absolute slush fund that's now getting exposed. And I think Marco Rubio was right. When you really look into it, some of the money was going to, a gender ideology in Ireland, all kinds of programs in all over the country, all over the world. It doesn't even make sense that we would waste our precious resources on basically indoctrinating the world into America's kind of perverted social justice programs that are kind of ruining our youth. So honestly, I'm so happy for this whole entire thing to get shut down.
Let's listen to what Donald Trump has had to say on USAID.
I love the concept of it. Yeah, that's the program. Sure, I love the concept, but they turn out to be radical left lunatics. And the concept of it is good, but it's all about the people.
Elon Musk claims that USAID is beyond repair. Some conservatives are labelling it a corrupt organisation run by unelected bureaucrats created to shovel taxpayer dollars to Democrat projects overseas. And that's the key part in this. This is taxpayer money.
Oh, 100%. And that's the worst situation with all this. And even my cat is upset about it. Kyle, get out of here. Sorry about that. But yes, that's how frustrated we are here in America, is just seeing our money being wasted for, like I said, this is literal indoctrination. This is globalism. These countries don't need to learn how to do gender reconstructive surgery for children. That can just be a very small sect of people in California. We don't need to try to teach sex ed in foreign countries. That's just not our responsibility whatsoever. So I'm happy that Elon Musk is exposing this. And like Donald Trump said, listen, I am about helping other countries, especially countries in need. But teaching children, how to get gender reassignment surgery or giving countries, money to throw pride parades or whatever weird social justice programs that this program is trying to spread across the world, it doesn't make sense. It's a waste for them and it's a waste for us.
Now let's look at what Donald Trump has been doing, especially with, he's caused a bit of a panic when it comes to the tariffs he's announced on Mexico and Canada. We've seen the panic play out about this, about how it could potentially drive up costs, what it would mean for jobs. But really, what we were seeing unfold is Donald Trump sticking up for America, claiming that countries have been taking advantage of the US for a long time. And his focus is about getting fentanyl out of the country. Well, today, Trump announced that the tariff with Mexico has been suspended for a month after a call with Mexico's president, who has agreed to place 10,000 soldiers on the border to stop drugs and migrants while negotiations continue. This certainly feels like a win to me.
100% this is a win. And it just shows you, just by Donald Trump being vocal about putting America first, it shows these other countries that we mean business and that Mexico wants to actually play ball and help us because they don't want to be taxed through the nose. So this is a brilliant move by Donald Trump. He's a guy that actually cares about America and wants to make this country great again. And so far, he's just, he's hitting home runs left and right.
JD Vance has been so strong on this, as he always is. Here he is speaking to the media.
The message from President Trump to the entire world is very clear. We are done being taken advantage of, and we have a president who looks out for the interests of American citizens. Thank God we do, and we're going to try to do it the best we can.
Alex, it just brings me so much relief every time I see JD Vance addressing the media, because it just reminds me that there was a point in time where this could have been Tim Walz.
Oh my gosh, or even Mike Pence. I mean, J.D. Vance is such an upgrade from both of those individuals. I'm so happy that Pence isn't on this ticket. He's totally become a traitor to the, whole Trump administration. But when you have J.D. Vance, you have to realize is that he sees what the American people want. And he realizes that he has a good shot of being the next president. So he's going to go out there and he's going to take this opportunity and he's going to try to do the best job that he can. And I think he's doing a great job by being so vocal. So listen, he's next in line. So he's going to try to probably invoke as much Trumpisms and try to be as vocal as Donald Trump is, because that's what the American people want, and that's what the American people need.
Absolutely. Look, Trump's been in power for just 2 weeks, can you believe it? And his administration claims that border encounters have plummeted by 93%, which is, of course, a good thing, but it's not apparently if you're in Los Angeles, because on Sunday we saw hundreds of protesters flooding a busy LA freeway, causing major traffic delays in response to President Donald Trump's illegal immigration crackdown. The images of this are just insane. But Alex, you'll love this. There are now calls on social media for women to become Karens if they see ICE patrols, to essentially give those people a hard time. Here's this post that reads, this is our chance to Karen for the greater good. Asked to speak to their manager, be relentless and be the Karen you were meant to be. I mean, come on, I can't believe it. They want illegal immigrants to stay in LA.
Yeah, and it's just the virtue signaling is off the chart. But what really bugs me, though, is when you saw the footage from all these protests that just happened here in America, you see that they're burning American flags. They are just disrespecting America so much, and they're waving the flag of their home country. If their home country is so good and you're so proud of it, go move there. We don't even need you. I just don't understand why stay in a place like America if it's so oppressive to your people, because these people are lying. They're doing activism because they want more illegal immigration here. And what that does is that really, it makes all the people that came here and did it the right way, that came here legally, it just discredits everything that they did. And really, it's disrespectful to the people that came here and did it the right way. So these protests are only going to happen more and more, I believe. But I think this is kind of what we need. We all need to talk about this serious issue, that if you want to come to this country, you're more than welcome, but you need to come here the legal way so that we can vet you, so that we can know that if you have a criminal history, that if you did, or ever, committed a serious crime, I'm sorry, we don't want you here. And that's just the cold, hard facts. And I'm happy that this is happening so that we can actually make some changes and protect our border, and people like Laken Riley aren't viciously murdered, while they're out just getting gas.
Let's check in on the Democrats. A new Quinnipiac University poll found that 57% have an unfavourable view of the Democratic Party. That comes as no surprise, but it appears that the Democrats haven't learnt anything. Here they are blaming racism and misogyny for the election loss.
How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat? Okay. So that's good. You all passed.
We're never going to hear the end of that, are we? This is just going to be their messaging for a long time.
It is going to be their messaging, and I think that what they're going to do next, and I don't know if I'm 100% right, but they're going to put Gavin Newsom up because he's a white guy, and they're going to be able to say that he won't be a victim of racism or misogyny, which is just provably false. Because if Kamala Harris was actually qualified, her being a woman would have given her an advantage, I believe, in this election. So it's just not true. The left has to make everything about race and gender truly being the racist ones. Because when you justify and label everybody by their race or, DEI instead of having a meritocracy, this is why we don't have qualified candidates. And this is why the Democratic Party is literally dying, because Kamala Harris, nobody liked her. And they didn't dislike her because she was a woman or because she was ethnically ambiguous. They didn't like her because she was untalented, and she just cackled all the time. And she couldn't admit that even during her time as vice president, that their administration made any mistakes whatsoever. So people saw that she's a liar. That all got exposed and had nothing to do with the fact that she is a woman.
And I think they're in trouble if they want Gavin Newsom to lead. He's been a disaster for California, and we've seen that with the wildfire catastrophe that unfolded in January. But Donald Trump, he's saving the day. He issued an executive order on Sunday to call on federal agencies to overrule California's regulations on endangered species to create more water availability. And the order also calls on several federal agencies to conduct reviews of environmental programs in the state. Now, this is a win for people in California. They've been through so much and they needed action like this to be taken.
100%. And, it's not just the water. And, it is kind of sad that some fish are probably going to have their habitat affected. But trust me, for the hundreds of thousands of people that were displaced in California, they need the help more than a few thousand fish. And I'm not trying to be insensitive, but that's why California is so insane. They would rather protect a fish that nobody cares about than protecting their own citizens. And it doesn't just start with the water issue. You know, they need to do controlled burns. They need to go get dead debris that's over 6 feet tall. There's a lot of protocols that the government of California and Gavin Newsom were not following in order to stop a wildfire. So Donald Trump will literally now start a fire underneath California to go fix all these issues that should have been fixed. It doesn't make any sense that reservoirs didn't have water in them, or that they didn't have enough fire trucks, or that the fire hydrants weren't usable. None of that makes sense in a first world country and first world city like Los Angeles, arguably one of the biggest cities in the world. This should be a simple thing, having water to put out fires, but not in Los Angeles, California, because the leadership is just so incompetent.
Alex Stein, thank you so much for joining us. Great to chat with you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Joining us now is royal commentator and host of the To Die For Daily podcast, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with the Grammys. We know when it comes to celebrities, there's really not much that shocks us anymore. But of course, Kanye West and his wife, Bianca Censori, managed to do just that when Bianca showed up basically naked on the red carpet. I mean, really, what is going on? Can I get your reaction?
Hi. Well, Kanye unfollowed everyone except for Taylor Swift right before the Grammys. Obviously, this is all a PR stunt. I think the real question that we're asking ourselves here in the States are, is he struggling with his lack of relevancy, or is this, another decline, another sign of a decline in his mental health? I can tell you that the shocking antics at the Grammys could potentially cost him a $20 million international concert deal, because those investors, after seeing that display, are now considering pulling out because, is this person somebody that they can trust with their money?
And I think there'd be a lot of support for those investors pulling out of the deal they had with Kanye West, because I don't think anyone is really happy to see a stunt like that being pulled off at the Grammys. But what was the highlight was Joy Villa making sense at the Grammys. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
I'm a Latina. My family came from this country to this country legally, and I love to see rapists, human traffickers deported. I don't want to see them here. I want us to be free for all colors, for all people. Like, that's what makes America great again. So we can create, so we can live. Like, as an artist, as a musician, I want to be able to walk at night and not think that I'm going to get killed by an illegal alien.
That would have triggered some liberals at the event.
It would have. And, it surprises me. She's talking common sense right there. And very similar words came out of Barack Obama's mouth years ago and Hillary Clinton. And those celebrities that would have been triggered told us to vote for those people. So it is unfortunate that somebody stands on a red carpet in Hollywood and talks common sense and has to be fearful of the repercussions.
Well, the other big drama in Hollywood, it's been the biggest drama for some time now, and that's the controversy around Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. Now, there's been an update. Justin Baldoni has launched a website dedicated to defending himself against Blake Lively's sexual harassment allegations, and it also links to a 168-page document detailing a timeline of relevant events related to the case, and it includes never-before-seen text messages. Kinsey, bring us up to speed.
Well, first of all, I'd like my Saturday back, because I read absolutely every single one of those pages. And why this is so damaging to Blake Lively is because I was not emotionally invested in this. I did it out of sheer curiosity, and I have switched teams. Now I feel like Blake and Ryan are pretty aggressive and entitled individuals, and I feel bad for Justin. They were in court today, not the celebrities themselves, but their representatives, and a judge did kind of slap Baldoni's hand for this move, for this website being out there. But in the court of public opinion, which I think is what is most important to him, this website has shifted the narrative immensely. And I do think no matter what happens with the judge in the court, they're going to feel like this is a win for them, because they do have people like me that are now siding with them.
I want to speak to you about the royal news. Kensington Palace will no longer give details about the outfit choices of Princess Catherine, especially when she wears certain outfits at public engagements. She wants to focus to be on her work rather than her wardrobe. A palace source on Saturday told the Sunday Times that Catherine wants the public to focus on the important issues that she is spotlighting rather than her fashion choices. What are your thoughts on this decision?
You know, I support this, and I wonder if at all this has to do with the Vanity Fair article slamming Harry and Meghan that criticized the fact that Catherine had been spending 11 years on, the early years project, and the author didn't feel like there was much to show for it. I disagree with the author there, but isn't it interesting to you that this comes just a week after Vogue magazine, allegedly, according to the Daily Mail, approached the Princess of Wales asking if she'd like to appear on the cover because they felt like she was a global fashion icon?
Well, let's talk about Harry and Meghan. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are reportedly considering a shock move to the UK. According to royal expert Bronte Coy, the Duke of Sussex's mind must have changed about members of the royal family after spending the past 5 years in the United States. Kinsey, are we really going to see this happen?
Well, it hasn't changed Meghan Markle's mind. She hasn't stepped foot in the UK since the death of Queen Elizabeth. She prides herself on that, and she prides herself on that control that she has. Harry and Meghan don't attend his friends' weddings because she doesn't want to visit the UK. She didn't accompany him to his uncle's funeral last year or the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games, knowing he would be alone and the royal family would not be there to support him. I think that this story is ludicrous. Because Meghan Markle does not want to be in the UK.
And I don't think people in the UK want to see them back either. Prince Andrew could face an FBI probe after the man set to be his new boss vowed to do everything to expose those who worked with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the bombshell came as newly published emails suggest that Andrew was in contact with Epstein for longer than he claimed. That's according to reports out of The Sun. What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, I mean, this is concerning because Kash Patel, Donald Trump's pick for FBI head, has been talking, before Trump was elected, was talking about how we needed to expose everyone that was associated with the Epstein scandal. No one was above the law, which is something that the Biden administration touted, all of the times they went after Donald Trump. So I do think that this is something he should be concerned of. What a gross email that we found in the Jeffrey Epstein, Randy Andy saying we'll play some more soon. And this is after he lied to Emily Maitness and told the BBC that he was no longer in contact with him. He should be concerned. And why can't you just be honest and keep your nose out of trouble, Andrew?
Absolutely. Kinsey Schofield, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Great to speak with you.
Thanks.
That is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.